So I know this isn't my usual content, but I've had this video on the back burner for a long time, and it was actually supposed to be my first video on the channel, but then I got sent that vaccine misinformation, and I thought it was a bit more important. Don't worry, paleo content will resume next week. I've got something really fun planned for April Fools. But I feel like this is important since there aren't too many videos on the subject, and most people that are against this stuff are because they don't know someone personally or they just don't understand the topic. But these things are a lot more nuanced and complicated than I'm going to describe it, so if you want to understand the topics better, I highly encourage you to do your own research. But I'm just going to leave it in basic terms, like sort of a crash course thing. But yeah, let's get into the video. Alright, so the difference between sex and gender is actually pretty simple, because sex is what I have with your mom every weekend. But in actuality, so most of you probably know that sex is determined by chromosomes, with XX chromosomes coding for female and XY chromosomes coding for male. In reality, it's infinitely more complex than that, but that's a very rough idea of how it works. There's actually a sort of third category that lies in between both of them, like not its own sex per se, but its own category of people. And that category is intersex. Intersex is an umbrella term that defines anyone that doesn't fit the typical XXXY categories. This includes things like Jacob syndrome, which actually used to be called Superman syndrome because people thought the extra Y chromosome gave people higher testosterone, making them more aggressive and more intelligent. But that's just not true by any definition. They just thought, oh, extra Y chromosome, that means extra manly. Intersex also includes things like Klinefelter syndrome, Turner syndrome, and XXX syndrome. There are also some people born with two sex chromosomes that have intersex traits. For example, people with De La Chapelle syndrome have two X chromosomes yet are phenotypically male because part of the Y chromosome is on one of the X chromosomes. And people with Swyer syndrome have XY chromosomes but are female. So if someone ever asks you, well, can someone with XY chromosomes give birth? Feel free to let them know that they can. It's rare, but they can. This is just a very oversimplified summary of intersex, as there are over 30 forms of intersex, some of which have nothing to do with chromosomes, but this is a very basic summary. Alright, so you might be thinking, but these are just deformities, and don't they cause health problems? Why would they be considered different from male or female? And this is partially true. Some intersex individuals do require surgery or have higher chances of infertility and cancer. But women also have a higher risk of cancer than men, taller people have higher risk of bone fractures and cancer than shorter people, and white people have a higher risk of skin cancer than black people. And these aren't considered deformities, it's just genetic variation. To add on to this, some intersex people don't experience any health problems at all. And the reason why it should be considered its own category is that if someone has both traits from males and females, they would need to be treated different medically than males and females. So it makes sense to categorize it as its own thing. This section of the video ran a bit longer than I thought it would, so rather than just being gender in general, this is gender identity. The main difference with gender identity is that one's identity doesn't need to be the same as their sex. It also consists of two umbrella categories. Yay, we love umbrella categories. The first one is transgender. This includes people that transition from female to male or male to female, basically people who transition along the male to female binary. It also sometimes includes non-binary, but it really depends who you ask. The next umbrella category is non-binary, which in extremely basic terms is everyone else. Now, you might have heard someone say, well, can I identify as an Apache attack helicopter? And the answer to that is no. Obviously not. You can't identify as something that doesn't have an identity. The same thing applies for people saying historical figures instead of attack helicopter. You might also hear people say, isn't being transgender a mental illness? And the short answer is no. The long answer is that gender dysphoria, formerly known as gender identity disorder, is a mental illness, in very heavy quotes. And the treatment for gender dysphoria is gender-affirming care. Basically, transitioning is the treatment for the clinical condition. Jeez, fuck. So gender expression is pretty straightforward. Gender expression is influenced by societal norms. People that identify as female might have longer hair, wear makeup, or paint their nails. Whereas people that identify as male might have shorter hair, grow facial hair, or go hunting or something. I don't know what men do. I've genuinely forgotten. Someone who doesn't identify with either category might choose societal norms from both men and women, or they might choose to exhibit things that aren't commonly associated with either. In summary, sex isn't as simple a binary as most people think it is, and is a lot more complicated, and it's okay and normal to not identify with your birth sex. Thank you for all the support I've been getting this past month. This channel is growing so much faster than I thought it would. Paleo content will resume next week. I've got some really fun stuff planned. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. See you next time.